Titre, une soirée avec Buffy Sainte-Marie, Musée canadien pour les droits de la personne, le 5 octobre 2016. Tout droit réservé. Le contenu audio et visuel de cette diffusion directe est protégé contre toute transmission électronique ou toute reproduction non autorisée en CRTU du droit d'auteur. Toute utilisation du contenu audio ou vidéo, en tout ou en partie, par une personne ou une entité, est strictement interdite et constitue une violation de la législation en matière de droit d'auteur.
Kichimiigwech, everybody. Thank you to our hosts, our Treaty One people, for the welcome that they have been giving people for a real long time.
Buffy Sainte-Marie est au lutrin, souriante. Ses longs cheveux foncés sont décorés de plumes, et elle porte une chemise écossaise à col boutonné par-dessus un t-shirt qui affiche le slogan « Honorer nos sœurs » au-dessus d'un dessin d'art autochtone rouge et blanc.
It's nice to see some friends, a relative here tonight, and I thank you for coming to see us all tonight. You know, museums and schools have some things in common that concern us all. And especially, I refer to the sharing of information. Some people imagine that it's very cool to be ahead of the times. But that's usually hindsight and not usually from the person who was actually there. So in 1964, I wrote a song called My Country, 'Tis of Thy People You're Dying, that used the word genocide in talking about the treatment of indigenous people in the Americas. And that was not done. It was a true and accurate use of the word. It was an appropriate use of the word. But I would have to wait over 50 years to see truth and reconciliation finally begin. And the good news about the bad news when it comes to truth and reconciliation is that more people know now. And it's very important. That's what this museum can do. And that's what we can do as educators and as lifelong learners, students. In the 1990s, now that was over 30 years ago, a Seneca program officer at the W.K. Kellogg Foundation heard me outline several radical ideas, including the Cradleboard Teaching Project that somebody asked me about today, and invited me to present a proposal. And I'd already been modeling the idea of core curriculum through indigenous perspectives. I mean, that sounds like a lot of words. For about 12 years privately on just my own money, my own leftover singing money. And I had partnered with my son's multicultural 5th grade class in Hawaii. I had partnered them with a class at my cousin's 5th grade class at Star Blanket Reserve in Saskatchewan. And what we did is we put the indigenous class into the driver's seat of delivering whatever they wanted to deliver about their own lives and realities and contemporary who they happen to be, but also anything that they would choose to share in the realm of history or social stuff. And with them being in the driver's seat, we also had them being the ones who were delivering our curriculum program. Many educators didn't get it at first when I talked about core curriculum through an Aboriginal perspective. Core curriculum, in case you happen not to be an educator, core curriculum, those are the subjects that everybody agrees all the kids ought to study, things like science and geography and history and social studies, government, stuff like that. So what we had the kids at Star Blanket Reserve do, we set them up in a twinning situation wherein they were sharing through faxes and goodie boxes and very early, very tedious and time-consuming early online partnering. They were sharing self-identity videos and pen pals and culture boxes. It was very new in those days to do that. But the most important thing that they were sharing was the idea of core curriculum through indigenous eyes. Normally what happens in most schools is that they study the Indians, in the fall, right? After the dinosaurs and the volcanoes, and around Columbus Day or Discoverer's Day, and sometimes around Thanksgiving. And then the entire curriculum goes back to being only Eurocentric. Only Eurocentric. What a waste, right? So when I was first talking to educators, for instance, at the Mohawk Reserve at Akwesasne, which is right on the Canadian-US border, around New York, Ontario, they said, well, we don't feel qualified to tell the kids in our partner school way across the country, a non-Indian school, we don't feel qualified to teach them about the Navajos and the Apaches and the Crees. I said, no, you don't have to. All we're asking is that you decide what you would like to share with that partner school far away. And we never partnered neighbors, because my granddad didn't like your granddad, my dog didn't like your dog, right? But for some reason, the exotic Indians far away are always a little bit more exciting than our neighbors. So we found some ways in talking to our Aboriginal teachers who always felt unqualified. I mean, our Aboriginal teachers, even still today, will say, I just don't feel qualified. The reason why they don't feel qualified is because nobody ever taught them anything, right? Nobody teaches us. And a lot of the public, they don't understand that. They think that we know everything. We don't. Nobody has taught us. Nobody's done the research. The mainstream teachers, the non-Aboriginal teachers, they would say, well, we don't feel qualified because, and the same reason, right? So we were facing a situation where we could use one problem to solve another problem. So what we did was we modeled this cradleboard teaching project in 18 states while we had a grant going. And our first grant was from the W.K. Kellogg Foundation. And the only thing wrong with it was that we needed to spend their grant money first on US kids. So, you know me, I found a way, and we wound up with about 30% Canadian content. And it was good, you know, it was good, and people really enjoyed the program. But we found that mainstream teachers, they just plain lacked excellent teaching materials. And I don't know an Aboriginal person in the whole wide world who doesn't have a hole where their self-esteem ought to be. And we suffer from being misperceived all our lives because of the same lack of materials. So forget twinning the schools for a second. Forget computers for a second. The core curriculum through an Aboriginal perspective. What that means is when you study science, I mean, science doesn't have any ethnicity. And if you're studying frequency and amplitude, why do we always study it through, I don't know, a flat page? You can't do it. Why do we study it in terms of pianos and tubas? What we did was two things. In the first place, we used multisensory learning. We have a girl, since she's sitting at a computer. She sees frequency and amplitude. I bet there aren't 10 people in this room who know the difference, right? Because it's always presented on a flat page. We gave the kids a slider like you'd have in a recording studio. And if we're talking about amplitude, the student takes the slider and raises it, and it gets louder and softer, louder and softer. When it comes to frequency, and the same move is made, you get.
Le public regarde les mouvements de ses mains qui montent et descendent.
So you have multisensory learning going on. And then, in order to reinforce the learning, we gave the kids an opportunity to study Aboriginal musical instruments. Drums, flutes, rattles, stringed instruments, vocals, powwow. And we didn't just tell them about the instruments. What we did is we told them why the drum changes sound when you heat it, and why the flute changes sound when you cover the various holes. You're actually lengthening and shortening the column of air. See, so you can teach core science through Indigenous perspectives. And you know why it's better? It's because it really raises self-esteem for Aboriginal kids to see their own culture, for once, not ignored, not shoved under the bed as soon as Thanksgiving has passed. And what it does for non-Aboriginal kids, besides being a lot more interesting than that same flat page, what it does is it gives them additional options in studying core science. In Manitoba, we reached a lot of very creative educators at the time, including 2 very brilliant ministers who embraced the concept, but we were very, very early. Most schools didn't have computers, but Helen Betty Osborne School did. And you know, they were right on top of it, but they were really an exception. And most other schools were restricted to using those old cumbersome early programs that everybody hated. And I think they're best reserved for doing taxes. And many professors in teacher education departments, they were at retirement age and they were resistant to learn computers themselves. It turned out that nobody at the time in Manitoba could get the idea past the entrenched guys. Sometimes I've heard referred to as bean counters, or kind of political guys who are kind of entrenched in the system. So my whole point is this: regardless of being too early for our online and multimedia delivery of this program in some areas, our mission to reach creative educators with the idea of core curriculum through Indigenous perspectives went everywhere because we put it in the air. Because we went everywhere. We took it every place. We put it in the air where people could learn for free. We talked about it on radio and TV and online. We took every opportunity, both paid and unpaid. We had spreads in lots of educator magazines. USA Today, APTN learned about it. 33 tribal colleges embraced it. Universities in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, BC, and Ontario learned. You sometimes don't wait for the money. If you've got a great idea, put it into other people's heads and hearts and let them run with it. And they have. Things are changing. We hosted conferences that brought teachers together and students from Aboriginal and mainstream Canada, the USA, and also we brought in students from Scandinavia, from the Sami Indigenous communities in Norway. And also we had teachers and students come from Australia, from Aboriginal communities there. And we taught them how to think beyond the old colonial system without ever having a fight. Just make it better and don't wait for the money. You know how to do it, you're a teacher, you know how to teach. Here's the content, run with it. See, not everything is business. Not everything is business. Some of the best ideas in the world are free, like natural talent and like breastfeeding. I know when I woke up in the hospital, having delivered my little boy, I looked over on the bedside table, and here's a big basket from, I don't know, Nestle or Enfamil or somebody, right? And my doctors didn't know about breastfeeding. They didn't learn it in medical school because it wasn't sponsored, right? And the formula companies were. And I mean, where does the money come out, So, no, it's a reality. Here you have this natural resource, like your heart, like your head, like the things that your body can do. And we kind of overlook them sometimes because we just get so tied up in the money. When you have a great idea that can profit everybody, whether you're a student or a teacher, there always will be gatekeepers. But just don't hang around waiting for them. They'll get around to it. They're doing something different. Don't get discouraged when you run into the gatekeepers at the foundation or in politics or in education. They're not the evil empire. They're just doing their job within the colonial system. So don't hold your gift back, waiting for them. If and when they catch up, it'll be even better for sure. But meanwhile, do it anyway, and don't wait for the money to give your gift as a teacher. I have a whole bunch of recommendations to make to the museum. I was just talking to several people about the recommendations that I have to make, and some of them I want to share with you too, because like I said, I like to put it in the air. Somebody here will run with it and do something amazing. You know, the nicest thing that's ever happened to me in my life was not my Academy Award or even Sesame Street. The nicest thing that ever happened to me was about 15 years ago when I found out the two early recipients of my scholarship foundation, the Hewan Foundation. You know, I'd given them scholarships in the 60s. Two of these people went on to found tribal colleges in their own communities. At Navajo Community College, Diné College, and at the Rosebud Reservation, Dr. Lionel Bordeaux, who also, on that scholarship money, he wound up founding the American Indian Higher Education Consortium. So you never know what one of your students or one of your colleagues, you know, you put it in the air, you give somebody a little gift, and they do something that you yourself could never have pulled off. You gotta keep that kind of hope alive. This is a nutsy world, you know. Right now, business majors run the world. My major in college, I had a double major, education, and the other was Oriental philosophy. And I found out in studying India about the caste system and how unbalanced things get when one group is running everything. There was a time in history when the church was running everything. Unbalanced. Or when the king was running everything. These damn serial killers who were all over Europe, terrorizing Europeans before they ever even got to us. Did you ever think when the Americas were discovered? They don't ever tell you when it was. It was during the Inquisition. There could not have been a worse time. A matter of timing. The way those people were treating their own people, you know, just terrible, 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 before they ever got to us. You got to remember that, you know, especially Aboriginal teachers have to understand that. The treatment of children in residential schools, read Charles Dickens. That's how it got to be like that. It's not just that white people hated Indians. No, it's the way they treated children. It was wrong in Europe and it was wrong here. Something that you need to understand is the doctrine of domination. And I'm recommending to the museum that they get a hold of a certain little documentary, a 40-minute documentary, which you can see online at 38plus2productions.com, 38plus2productions.com, and it's about the doctrine of domination. The doctrine of domination is something that you have to understand if you're going to know, teach, understand about Aboriginal anybody. And I don't care where it is in the world. At that time in history, in the 14 and 1500s, there were several popes who worked together to come up with this doctrine of domination. Here's what was going on. Explorers were starting to go all over the world, and every now and then they'd come into an Aboriginal, you know, they'd come into a new place. And the rule that the doctrine of domination made said that if you go to an inhabited land and they're already converted, then, well, one of the other countries got to them first. Hands off, because those other countries are our brothers and we've got a deal. The 5 countries that are involved were Spain, Portugal, France, Holland, and England. They colluded together. If these people in inhabited lands were not converted, then your duty is to enslave them or kill them. Oh, the 1500s, that's a long time ago. It was embedded in all of the colonial countries that Holland, France, Portugal, England, and France were discovering. It's embedded in US law. It's embedded in Canadian law. That's what happened to the people in Australia. They had clearance to do it, and it's still in the law. I want to see the doctrine of discovery fill up one of these big walls. I want people to see what it actually says. That's what happened to us. And nobody ever talks about it. It's so obscure. I really do recommend that little movie. It's only 40 minutes long. It was made by Sheldon Wolfchild and Stephen Newcomb. Stephen Newcomb, the Institute for Indigenous Law, I believe. You can find him online as well. So, what I hope you're picking up is, wow, there's some cool things going on in the Indigenous world. a lot of people are doing a lot of things that you don't hear about. We're overwhelmed by the big things in the world, right? By TV and the circus and, whatever's going on. But there are a lot of things being done, like this evening, things that might seem small in the big picture, but to me, it's the real deal. We can create better core curriculum by not excluding our culture. It gets better for everybody. You didn't have to be Aboriginal to love and understand the little videos and films that we did, the multimedia videos that we did in science and in social studies and etc. We need to refine our ways of approaching funders who usually only donate to the ballet and the opera. Please keep donating to the ballet and the opera, but that's not all there is. We need to be creating tools so excellent that it helps funders to understand not only our challenges, but our contributions and our potentials for everybody. We've got a lot to give. We can educate our own students and everybody else with enhanced, accurate curriculum by, included, and about Aboriginal people. It's easy once you get the hang of it. It really is. We should educate beyond our own neighborhoods with surprising excellence, not the same old thing. I mean, for me, the biggest problem in schools is it's boring. But it doesn't have to be anymore. The Cradleboard Teaching Project, we were so early, nobody even knew computers. They didn't know what that was. Very few schools knew what it was. But now, look at our emerging teachers all over Canada. Oh, they're all over Photoshop and movie programs and animation. What should they use those tools for? Interactive multimedia curriculum from within an Indigenous perspective that still matches content standards. You've got to match content standards. What you're making as educators needs to be so good that the funders say, wow. So go for excellence. We must live up to changing times and new opportunities to be properly perceived. There's a lot of money out there in this 150th anniversary. There are a lot of foundations who are willing to fund things. There are new opportunities to be properly perceived by others and to be included in new funding. We need to abandon rankism of all kinds in Canada, in Canadian life, in our schools. Rankism, I don't care what it is, it's all bullying. Rankism is bullying. You can call it racism, that's just the clothes the bullying's wearing. That's just the thin edge of the wedge. Sexism, ageism, genderism, it's all bullying. Don't stand for it in yourself. Get rid of that rankism. We need to take seriously our own grassroots culture and culture carriers and continue to support, develop, update them, and help them to share what they want to share. Stay calm and decolonize, that's what I say. Allow yourself to ripen. There's not one single one of us who isn't growing right now. But I think because of the kings in Europe, who they wanted everything to stay the same and just do what they wanted to do. Those days are over. You're ripening every day you're better. So am I, so is everybody else. Even the guys you don't like, they're ripening too. We need to create a world that's about more than money. Oh, it ain't money that makes the world go around. That's only temporary confusion. It ain't governments that make the people strong. It's the opposite illusion. Look right now and you see they're only here by the skin of their teeth as it is. So take heart and take care of your link with life is beautiful if you got the sense to take care of your source of perfection. Mother Nature, she's the daughter of God and the source of all protection. Look right now and you see she's only here by the skin of her teeth as it is. So take heart and take care of your link with life. We can create a world that's about more than money. Reconsider colonialism and coin-based decisions. Learn some of the issues. That we're absent from curriculum in public schools is a disgrace. It's just one more indicator of colonial genocide, but we can fix it. We can. We can. We can in this building, we can in this city, we can in this country. Nobody would want to teach bad math. Nobody would want to teach bad geography about a flat earth. You wouldn't do that. So it's up to people who are interested in Aboriginal everything, whether you're Aboriginal or not, or a little bit of this and that. It's up to you to take your passion for Aboriginal everything, step forward, turn it into something. You can do this. I don't care whether you make a comic book or a poem or a life for somebody. If you care about the values that you feel from Aboriginal people, run with it, go for it. Don't wait for somebody to hire you to do it. Do it yourself. You the boss. I want to inspire you to enjoy Aboriginal Canada, to learn it, to teach it, to create new and better curriculum content. What about Idle No More? Yes, 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 yes. I would love to be working with Idle No More in a new way. I mean, Idle No More is about undoing racism and other forms of oppression. They do it now through webinars, website, Facebook, teach-ins, videos, round dances, class presentations, etc., all for free and on a shoestring. It'd be great to have the support. If you know people who are trying to give away money for really, really passionate people who know what they're talking about, I'm talking about Aboriginal PhDs, people with master's degrees, people who are just drenched in their culture and have a love for it and are willing to share it. What we would like to do at Create a Board, I would like to be making some of the issues, some of the issues are hard that they're facing. I would like to be writing child-friendly curriculum about some of the contemporary issues that seldom get mentioned. Like staying safe, like understanding our rights, like nonviolence, like what's cool about history, science, and culture. They're also hoping to develop an international Indigenous PhD with a land-based focus, which sounds really, really good to me. The Canadian Museum of Human Rights can and must promote human rights through culturally appropriate education. The doctrine of discovery, it's still being used against us, although it was written in the 1500s. Where is it? Oh, those poor little Indian kids, they cut their hair and wouldn't let them speak their language. Isn't that awful? I'm sorry, folks. There was an electric chair involved. There were cattle prods. Where are they? Where are they? I'm not seeing them in this museum. I'm not seeing them anywhere. Why aren't we talking about that? We see the horror that was done by the Nazis, and it breaks our hearts, but at least we know. The electric wires that was used on little kids, not once or twice, thousands and thousands of times. It needs to be in this building for this building to be what it needs to be. So I hope to continue to work with the museum and to pull some of these things off. Where is the Ottawa Citizen 1907 newspaper? Where is that? The article that Peter Bryce, a doctor, wrote. He called it a national crime. It was about the residential schools and what was going on. It's not as though people didn't know, people. People did know, and people covered it up. Little kids being exposed to tuberculosis patients deliberately and left alone to die. It is a sad story. And it's going to get told. And I sure hope that this museum is a part of the continuation of telling that. If you want to know about the electric chair, Edmund Meditawab, he heads up the St. Anne's Survivor Association. Get in touch with him. We're going to find that chair. Or we ought to make a replica. It ought to be here. Don't walk me through this museum and show me everybody's horrors but our own. I don't want to see anybody pussyfooting about these issues. My friends and family went through it. There's a wonderful movie called Where the Spirit Lives, which I'd like to see circulated. Child-friendly story about the residential schools. So what I really want to tell you today is that we don't have to tear down the system in order to improve it. We don't have to. We can replace the old inaccuracies with accurate, engaging, interactive multimedia teaching materials that engage children and that teachers enjoy using and universities can enjoy creating with the help of local Aboriginal culture experts. It's a pleasure to be at the museum again. I've seen lots of progress since opening day when I was here, and I look forward to working with you guys in pursuing what you're trying to pursue and our mutual interests in making the world a better place. Thank you.
Elle fait une révérence. Le public fait une ovation.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Andrea Kessi s'approche du lutrin.
So we have some time for some question and answers. We have a few microphones in the crowd over here. We'll come to you. There's another one on the other side of the room, and I have one here for the middle. So if you'd like, if you just want to signal, and Buffy will take a few questions.
Oh, we scared him.
Andrea se dirige vers un membre du public pour lui donner un micro. Elle regarde le micro de près avant de le lui remettre.
Check, wait.
I just didn't get the name of the movie you just recommended to us and where we could find it.
Oh, you know what? Look it up on YouTube. Look up the Doctrine of Discovery, and you'll find more than the movie. You'll find the actual Doctrine of Discovery. Let's see.
You just mentioned another movie.
Where the Spirit Lives. That one. Where the Spirit Lives. The producer was Paul Stevens, and it was Amazing Spirit Productions. You know, it might even be available online, I don't know, but I would love to see it revitalized and circulated, especially to schools. It's a real good way for kids to understand, but it's not too heavy.
Okay, thank you. We have another question over here, Mary Lou.
Buffy, Mary Lou McFedrin from University of Winnipeg. It's good to see you again.
Hi.
Good to have. I wanted to share with you that I actually teach a university course in this classroom using the galleries in the museum. And one of the assignments that is part of the course is to use music as a way of conveying human rights issues. And I just wanted to share with you that there's never been a course, we've run this for 6 years, and one of your pieces of music is always chosen by the students as part of conveying core human rights issues in the course.
Which song?
Several. It's up to the students to choose. So they've chosen a whole range. I can think of 3 or 4 right now, including Universal Soldier, but also, I can't remember the title, but where you talk about how Indigenous people are feeling.
Yes.
Addressing it to a woman. I don't remember the title, but my point is that over 6 years of holding the course and working with folks and the museum, the students are choosing your music most consistently.
Well, thank you for telling me that. You know, I have a song, that song I mentioned when I first started talking, My Country, 'Tis of Thy People You're Dying. I wrote that in the U.S., but, and I kind of referred it to U.S. things, but for the close of Truth and Reconciliation in Ottawa, they sponsored a big concert, and I did perform that song, and I'm going to share it with the museum, the sound file, and I'm hoping that they'll blow up the words. Because sometimes you can say something in a song that, you know, a 400-page book that probably nobody will ever read, can't do. I mean, sometimes you can say things differently. I mean, that particular song, it says, now that your big eyes are finally opened, now that you're wondering how must they feel, meaning them that you've chased across Canada's movie screens, now that you're wondering, how can it be real that the ones you've called colorful, noble, and proud in your school propaganda, they starve in their splendor. You've asked for our comment, I simply will render. My country, 'tis of thy people you're dying. I'm talking about denial. Now that the longhouses breed superstition, You force us to send our children away to your schools where they're taught to despise their traditions, forbid them their languages, then further say, the Canadian history really began when explorers set sail out of Europe and stressed that the nations of leeches who conquered these lands were the biggest and boldest and bravest and best. And yet where in your history books is the tale of the genocide basic to this country's birth, of the preachers who lied, of the people who died, how a nation of patriots returned to their earth? And where will it tell of the starvation hell as the children were herded and raped and converted? And how do we rescue the missing and murdered? My country, 'tis of thy people you're dying. The past, it just crumbled. The future just threatens. Our lifeblood is shut up in your papers and banks, and now here you come, bill of sale in your hand, and surprise in your eyes that we're lacking in thanks for the blessings of civilization you've brought us, the lessons you've taught us, the ruin you've wrought us. Oh, see what our faith in, O Canada, got us. My country, 'tis of thy people you're dying. Now that our own chosen way is your novelty, now that we're harmless and safe behind laws, now that my life's to be known as your heritage, now that even the graves have been robbed, now that our own chosen way is your novelty, hands on our hearts, we salute you, your victory, choke on your true white and scarlet hypocrisy, pitying your blindness. How can it be that you don't see how the eagles of war, whose wings bring your glory, they're never no more than buzzards and crows, pushed some wrens from their nests, stole their eggs, changed their story. The mockingbird sings it, it's all that she knows. Ah, what could I do, say a powerful few, with a lump in your throat and a tear in your eye? Can't you see that their poverty's profiting you? My country, 'tis of thy people you're dying. That's a hard one. But sometimes you got to say it. So I said it 50 years ago, but it took 50 years for truth and reconciliation to happen, and thank goodness it did.
I think we have 2 more questions over here.
Un homme en complet se met debout, tenant un micro.
I'm profoundly moved by the truth that you've presented so effectively. My name's David Newman, and I work with educators through our universities, the Canadian Museum for Human Rights, through a grassroots movement which is called Rotary. It's an international network. And what we're trying to do is to really overcome the disablement imposed on all of us who have been really betrayed by our education system, by our own parents and grandparents who are part of that same system, by the faith groups that really have acted inconsistently with the values and the science, which is now proving many of their doctrines wrong. We've been guided by government, which has been misinforming us over many, many years. So people of my kind of age look back and we say, we need an incredible amount of re-education. And those of us who believe in cradle-to-grave education are doing precisely that. And the teachers now are those who are the oppressed and the impoverished and the victims of the kind of discrimination you speak to. So we have a major challenge here. And I really want to encourage you to be part of a movement, grassroots-driven, to change the likes of UNESCO. UNESCO is supposed to replace war. It's supposed to change the minds and hearts and spirits of people through education. We have 196 UNESCO commissions in the world. We can have them, through leadership in Canada, change what is integrated in our curricula throughout the world. The issue of Indigenous peoples in Canada is as serious and maybe even more serious in other countries of the world, all the countries that were colonized. So my question is, what can we do to have the greatest impact during your lifetime and my lifetime and the lifetime of other people in this room to make the biggest difference fastest and most effectively.
Wow. That was great. Thank you. You know, I don't mean to be facetious, but I mean it. Stay calm and decolonize. You have opportunities every day. You know, the Dalai Lama, I don't want to be too lightweight on this, but the Dalai Lama said the biggest tool for peace that we have is our smile for one another. I love Rotary. I love Rotary. I love what you said. I don't know that there is one thing. Teachers can go for excellence. So can politicians. So can businessmen. I mean, it's not just about money. It really isn't. And yet, we are unbalanced at the moment. Business majors run the world, right? Guys with MBAs and good shoes run the world. If you know guys like that, help them to know. I mean, they got brains. I think maybe we have to be a little bit hopeful. You know, I have a song called We Are Circling, and it says, we are ripening, ripening together. Babies, elders, bozos, and angels. This is how we grow. This is how we get to know, you know? So the fact that we are all growing means that the guy who didn't seem to have a heart last week maybe does this week. I wish that I could give you just, you know, a formula for success, but I really think that's it. All of us have something to give, and some of us are experts in things that you and I may not be experts in. But we need to reach people. We need to have the guts and the balls to do that. We gotta really, you gotta have the courage to let people know. I mean, there were some great books, there were some great films, there is the museum, and take it seriously, your visit to the museum. You know, if you're making a particular study of Aboriginal people and just, you know, just forget everything else that's in the museum for the moment, there's a lot here. There's not as much here as I would like to see. I hope next year we'll have more things here, but this is a good trail. This is a good trail. I wish I had a better answer for you. That's going to have to do for now.
Okay, and we're going to take our final question here.
Yeah, my name is Joe Keeper.
Oh.
I am a Crie Indian from northern Manitoba, and I've gone to residential school, and I lived in this world for, well, I'm 88 years of age right now. But I was really struck when you repeated the words to my country, 'tis of the people you're dying, because I think that, like what Mr. Newman here said, it's true. But I think that one of the things that has struck me, like when I went to residential school, and I went to school at Norway House as a boy, I always felt that there are a lot of good-hearted people. But you have to go beyond being good-hearted, because we are, as you say, like, there's a doctrine of discovery, the whole milieu under which the European culture, came over here, and it is imbued into the very, well, it's not a instinctual thing, but it's a cultural thing, and it's so hard for them to get away from the idea that Indian people, or indigenous, whatever they call us now, are the same as they are. Like, I remember going to school at Norway House, where we were told we couldn't speak Crie at the school, And then when I first went to residential school, I was 13 when I got there, and the principal, and I was going to school in town. I was the only kid from the school going to school in town. And the principal was saying to me, you need to make friends with the kids in town, because, these boys are okay here, but you got to learn a different way. But to me, and you what you said, this hole in your heart, They've taken the self-esteem. And that's the other side of it, of course. But the most important side is that the dominant society, treat us in a particular way. And the insidious thing about that is they're not aware of it. Mm-hmm. And how you break that, I don't know. It's a long process. But I think one of the things that has to be done, and I believe in that we have to stand up and we have to take a position. We can be nice people, but we also have to be strong in what we do. We just can't lay down and let good people try to make us better. Mm-hmm. There's this whole idea, there's so much, I can't think of the right word, well-meaning condescension, I guess is the word.
Yeah.
There's so much of that, and it makes me so mad every time I hear that. Like we were called Indians at one time. We're still called Indians in the Constitution. Then we're called non-white, Aboriginal, and now we're being called Indigenous by the people in power. Like, I remember a friend of mine who's gone now, but he said, well, I don't know what to do because I don't know what they're calling us in Ottawa this year. But I think the point is that, for the dominant society and for ourselves too, that we have to really take a good look at ourselves and see how we feel. This, like Mr. Newman here said, we have to really look into ourselves and see how we can begin to talk as peers, not as somebody that's helping another person, because they're not as good as we are.
Mm-hmm. If I may, you made me think of something that I had written down and I didn't know until right now why I wrote it down. There was a guy named Milton Friedman. Oh, I'm so mad at that guy for a lot of reasons, right? Economist, right? Professor. But he said one thing that I got to agree with. This is brilliant. Concentrated power is not rendered harmless by the good intentions of those who create it. I'll say it again. Concentrated power is not rendered harmless by the good intentions of those who create it. I hear what you're saying. Yeah. Sometimes it's people with the best of intentions who have, unwittingly caused us things that need to be untangled. But we can do it. I know we can. I'm a girl who gets to travel all over the world in a lot of Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities. And there's a lot of good people out there. Sometimes it's just a matter of, it's like we're all on a toboggan together. If we all steer, if we all lean together, things can be different. And that's why gentle things like what the Dalai Lama says about your smile, it's in your heart, it's in our heads. We can do this, I think.
Andrea Caissier debout près du lutrin.
Well, on that note, on behalf of the museum, I would like to thank you for first acknowledging that we've grown, for challenging us, for inspiring us, and I think inspiring everyone else, but also for providing pathways to solutions. Thank you, Buffy. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for all of your questions and for your time. I'm sure we could have gone on all evening with questions, but I think this is the beginning of a conversation, the continuing of a conversation. I encourage you all to continue to add your voices to it. So have a wonderful evening. Thank you for your time, Miigwech.
Thank you, everybody. Kiti miigwech.